Let's talk retail and consumer spending because we have a big consumer confidence number for May that came out today. And there are also some indications that you, the great American shopper, spent freely this long weekend. In much of the country, the weather was trash, so why not go shopping? Joining us now is Brett Rose, CEO of United National Consumer Suppliers. They're a huge wholesale distributor to over 100,000 retailers, 120,000, including Macy's, TJX, Amazon, and many others. So, Brett, welcome to the program. You're not a household name, but maybe you should be, because I'm guessing that under the hood, you know exactly what's happening. What trends did you see?
Yeah, so I think we're not a household name. We're sort of the man behind the curtain. I think one of the biggest trends we saw was sort of early back to school, right? Economic concerns are driving the consumer behavior, whether it's fear of tariff, fear of inflation, pick the reason right now. So it drove her to the mall. And while she was there, rather than buy just specifically what she wanted, Brian, it's very similar to March 2020, right? I don't want to say panic buying, but it's a little bit of concern buying ahead of the unknown of the price changes that are really changing every day, right? We saw a huge change this morning, the announcement of the tariff extension until July.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation, Brett, about how much this time might mirror sort of, the COVID summer. I don't want to compare this in any way to COVID because that was a health pandemic that killed millions around the world. But the supply chain implications were certainly a big deal, and consumers saying, let's get now, so because we may not be able to get later. Do you see, when you supply companies, do you see any of that type of behavior where it's like, let's just stock up now because we don't know what September is going to look like?
Yeah, so I think, Brian, you were spot on. Aside from the fact, the tragedies around the pandemic, it drove consumerism to an all-time high. People didn't panic buy toilet paper. People panic bought whatever they could get their hands on. So if you split it, we're seeing consumerism is driven by the fear, and the retailers were stocking up in fear of the pricing, right? Because if those tariffs don't get pushed beyond July 9th, or something else happens between the U.S. and Chinese government, and the tariffs do in fact go north of 100%, retailers have to be able to combat that. And you've got, Marshall's, TJ Maxx, Dollar Tree. Those guys are positioned really well to ride this out because of the alternate supply chain. But when you talk about a Macy's or a Burlington or a Kohl's, whose stock took a hit today, those guys aren't necessarily positioned as such. And we saw that in 2020, by the way, because on top of the tariffs, when the tariffs are done, there'll be supply chain, replications way beyond that. There'll be effects for months, even once the tariff issue is solved.
And that's the big question. Like, a lot of people don't understand this about retail. I do, because my wife worked at consumer products for 25 years, and we talk about it around the kitchen table, which is how long, they'll be talking about Christmas in March, the next Christmas, because that's how long the whole chain would last. What are you hearing, Brett, about, 6 to 9 months from now, and where companies like a Macy's, like a Kohl's, like a TJ Maxx, whatever it is, where they might be with inventory and thus pricing, at Christmas? And I mean, it's not too early to talk about the holidays.
The challenge retailers have too, if you recall back in late 21, Wall Street killed retailer pricing because they had so much inventory levels that the street, their stock prices took a huge hit on the street. We watch Walmart, right? Walmart, for all intents and purposes, sets the barometer, and Walmart is maintaining their prices. So it's helping retail concerns stay a little bit sort of under the mark. However, to your point and to your wife's point, there's a massive tail. So let's say all tariffs disappear tomorrow and retail gets back to normal. You still have containers that have been showing up in Long Beach empty. There's going to be a massive backlog of tens of thousands of containers that were initially canceled in China. Then one of two things are going to happen. They're going to end up in the off-price market, which is great for the consumer, or all of a sudden there's going to be an influx in Long Beach, and now the port shuts down. So the implications are going to be way into next year.
So basically, if I started to cut you off, if I got like a load of short sleeve shirts in October in Maine, that's not good for inventory, right? Those are going to go to TJ Maxx.
Correct. And really, consumer issues in regular retail make for great opportunities for off-price retailers, right? They're really the ones that sort of benefit from challenges and the issues.